Baker, a much bigger explosion, was probably large amounts of submerged explosives. Soon enough the Soviets would begin to build their own fake nuclear bombs. August 29th, 1949. The Soviets faked their first atomic bomb. Making a device that will cause a nuclear explosion is one thing. Making deliverable nuclear bombs is a further challenge. Mass manufacturing these devices so that they can be stockpiled, ready for use as and when needed, brings with it further difficulty. It is not denied that nuclear weapons have a lifespan. This is good for the industry, as the need for periodical replacement generates ongoing revenue.
2 years after Crossroads, authority was given by President Truman to proceed with Operation Sandstone. The 3 devices utilized on Sandstone employed new technology to double the explosive force of the bomb, using the same amount of plutonium spent over Nagasaki. This technology met Department of Defense requirements for more efficient bombs and increased the ability to stockpile nuclear weapons. Results of Sandstone affected the design of future nuclear weapons, rendering the Mark III production components of the Fat Man bomb obsolete. The Mark IV and Mark V designs brought improved performance and lighter weight to nuclear weapons.
The purpose of Sandstone, and later Greenhouse, was to incrementally double and double again the power of these fictional bombs. At first by using the nuclear fuel more efficiently, and then by adding elements, primarily isotopes of hydrogen, deuterium and tritium. This would ultimately lead to the myth of the fusion bomb, many times bigger again. Also, during this period, they would invent a way of utilizing U-238 within the bombs. Before, they had wanted to maintain the idea that making nuclear bombs was very difficult due to the production method of plutonium and the separation method for U-235 being difficult, time-consuming and producing very small quantities with very high production costs. The use of ordinary uranium-238 was required to make it conceivable for them to continue making bigger and bigger bombs requiring more and more fissionable material, and to make a large number of them. It was also very convenient, as large quantities of uranium-238 were left over from the process of isolating uranium-235. Though uranium-235 and/or plutonium would continue to be an essential element of each fictional fission bomb.
A fourth test on Operation Greenhouse was the item test, about a 45.5 kiloton test in which tritium was burned in the very center of the nuclear explosion. And this process of putting tritium at the very center of the nuclear weapon is called boosting. And we kicked the yield up from about 20 kilotons to 45.5 kilotons, more than doubling it by that process. Another of the events on Greenhouse was the George event. Now, George is a large 225 kiloton weapon that was used to burn a deuterium capsule. And this is the first of our thermonuclear weapon experiments to ever be conducted.
October 3rd, 1952. The British faked their first atom bomb. It was supposedly detonated inside the hull of a frigate, 8 feet 10 inches below the waterline. It was likely just a frigate filled with large quantities of explosives.
Dr. Penny gives the order for the weapon to be fired at 8 o'clock next morning. One scientist remains to arm the firing circuit. Connect the batteries. 1, 2. Next, the switches. 1, 2, 3. Now the key. Turning the circuit into position to fire. That's it. The weapon is ready to explode at the touch of control headquarters on an island some miles away. But it can't be fired before this man gets there, since he carries a safety link, and without that link the firing circuit is still open. Inside headquarters, the rest of the control party are waiting at their instruments. In the half-light of the control room, the safety link is delivered to the controller. The final process of firing can now be set in train.
Time bracket open. Fox George, this is How 1. Pass your message, over.
Hello, How 1, this is Fox George. Phase Saturn completed. Over.
Understand. Phase Saturn completed. Out.
Right. You can put the safety key in now.
Safety link in. Circuit complete.
Can we have the all-ready signals, please? Mr. Abercrombie, please. Thank you. Minus 8.5 minutes. Now.
drifts well clear of the mainland, but it's still highly charged with dangerously radioactive water and mud.
Situated on the Zero Island was the cab, or building, which housed the device. The Mike device was known as a wet bomb because it used liquid hydrogen isotopes to create the thermonuclear reaction. This made the device very large, weighing some 62 tons, and impractical to use as a deliverable weapon. A plywood tube ran from the Zero Island across the causeways to a detection station on the farthest island, a distance of nearly 2 miles. This tube was filled with helium, allowing lethal radioactive rays faster travel to the detection station before the island was consumed by the fireball.
A 2-story, 82-ton steel cylinder containing a concentric series of thermos bottles, which housed the super-chilled liquid deuterium, the hydrogen fuel, as well as raw uranium, tritium, Teller's plutonium spark plug, lead baffles, gold leaf reflectors, an ablative polyethylene lining, and, sitting at the very top of the assembly, a Nagasaki-style fission bomb to get it all going. The mechanism, along with its support and refrigeration gear, required a hangar-sized building called a shot cab to house it. The pipes leading off to the right were for observation purposes. They would carry the initial bomb light down a 2-mile wooden tunnel to sensors on a neighboring island. Cruiser Estes ordered the capacitors of the fission primary to simultaneously discharge into 92 detonators. The resulting shock waves raced through the high explosive shell, converging on and compressing the plutonium sphere into a supercritical metallic fluid, and crushing the tiny initiator at its core, releasing a few dozen neutrons to start the chain reaction. Million-degree X-rays outran the blast wave by milliseconds, racing down the radiation channels to immolate the interior plastic lining and send it crashing inward toward the plutonium spark plug suspended within the now superheating liquid deuterium. Pressure from the fissioning spark plug touched off a fusion reaction in the tritium at its core. The expanding shockwave met the inwardly rushing radiation to further compress the deuterium. Hydrogen atoms began to fuse, momentarily creating every element that had ever existed in the universe, and a couple more besides. A few millionths of a second after receiving its orders from the Estes, Mike had burst free of its thermos bottle and was heading for the upper stratosphere.